The house stood plain at the edge of the village, where the road bent and fields gave way to woods. Its walls were timber and stone, its roof low and thatched, its windows small and square. There was nothing remarkable in its shape or size. Yet within, at the heart of it, stood the hearth, the fire that never failed. For years, the hearth had been the house's soul. Its flames baked the family's bread, dried their clothes after rain, and warmed the bones of children in winter. Neighbors knew the glow of its chimney, travelers passing on the road caught sight of its smoke and knew shelter lay nearby. To step across its threshold was to feel the heat that drove out frost and fear alike. The hearth marked time itself. In the mornings, the coals were stirred back to life, sparking red against gray ash. At noon, the fire blazed strong, boiling pots and spitting against the iron grate. At night, the flames softened, throwing shadows that danced across the walls while stories were told and children drifted into sleep. To the family within, the hearth was more than wood and stone. It was the measure of their days, their shield against hunger and cold, the symbol of safety. The father's hands were cracked from chopping wood to keep it fed. The mother's palms bore the memory of years kneading dough to bake against its heat. The children's laughter seemed brightest in its glow. There had never been a time when the hearth did not burn. And so none could imagine what would follow, when a shadow crossed the threshold and stole the fire's gift away. It was early morning when the serpent came. The fire had only just been stoked, the smoke trailing soft from the chimney into a pale sky. The mother knelt by the hearth, turning the coals with the iron poker, while the father split kindling by the door. The children stirred in their beds, yawning, stretching, their feet still tucked in blankets. That was when the first sound came, not loud, but low, like something dragging through dry leaves. The mother paused, listening. The father lifted his head. Then, across the threshold, it appeared. A serpent, long and dark, thick as a man's arm, its scales catching the weak morning light. It moved without hurry, its body sliding across the worn wood of the doorstep, each coil deliberate, each movement smooth. Its tongue flickered, tasting the air. The father stepped forward, axe in hand, but his arm froze before it could rise. The serpent lifted its head, and its eyes met his, two small orbs, black and steady, with a depth that seemed to root him in place. The children, peering from their beds, fell silent. Even the dog at the wall whimpered once, then slunk into the shadows. The serpent crossed the threshold as though it belonged, its body flowing into the house, over the stone floor, past the father's feet. It did not strike, did not coil in threat, did not hide. Instead it passed directly toward the hearth. There it paused, stretching its body along the warm stones, its head lifted as though listening to the crackle of the flames. Its tongue flickered again, tasting the fire itself. And then, with a movement so slow it seemed endless, the serpent lowered its head against the base of the hearth. The room grew colder. The family watched, rooted in silence, their breaths shallow, their bodies heavy as if held by unseen weight. None dared move, none dared speak. The serpent remained at the hearth, its body stretched across the stones, its eyes unblinking. And from that moment, the warmth that had filled the house began to fade. That night the fire burned, but the warmth was gone. The father had stacked the hearth with wood, thick and dry. The flames leapt high, sparks rising into the chimney. The children sat close, as they always had, waiting for the familiar comfort to spread through their limbs. But none came. They stretched their hands toward the blaze, and felt nothing. The light danced as it always did. The flames licked at the logs, the smoke curled upward, the fire roared with life. But its breath was hollow. The air in the room grew no warmer. The children pulled their blankets tighter, shivering though they sat within arm's reach of the blaze. The mother pressed her palms close to the coals, so close the skin should have seared. Yet her hands remained cold, pale, numb. She gasped, drew them back, then tried again, pressing nearer still, nothing. Not heat, not pain, not the faintest flicker of warmth. "It is only the wood," the father said at last, his voice low. He threw more kindling into the fire, then larger logs, until the hearth crackled with fury. Sparks spat into the air, flames twisted high, and yet the house remained chilled, its walls heavy with cold. The serpent lay in the shadows at the base of the stones, its long body unmoving, its head tilted toward the fire. Its black eyes glinted faintly in the shifting light, though it gave no sound, no strike. Only its stillness filled the room, pressing deeper than the cold itself. The family tried to sleep, but their breaths hung in the air like mist. The children huddled together for warmth. The mother wept quietly into her hands. The father sat upright through the night, axe across his knees, staring at the serpent in the hearth's shadow, though he never raised the blade. By morning the fire had burned down to ash. The house stood silent, brittle with frost. And for the first time in memory, the hearth was no longer a shield against the cold. It had become only light without life. By the second day, the story spread. Neighbors came to the door, drawn by whispers that the hearth fire had turned strange. At first they thought it nothing more than poor wood, damp or spoiled. They brought bundles of their own, dry pine and oak, and set them on the blaze. The flames roared higher, brighter than ever. Yet the house remained cold. One by one, the neighbors stretched out their hands, expecting the usual comfort of heat. Each time they gasped, pulling their fingers back in disbelief. The light stung their eyes, but their skin felt only the bite of winter. A woman carried in her own candle, its small flame trembling in the draught. She held it up as proof that fire would burn true in her hands. But the moment she stepped past the threshold, the glow dimmed. The flame thinned, shivered, and with a soft hiss, it died. Smoke curled upward, leaving her clutching a blackened wick. She fled the house, clutching her chest, refusing to return. Others tried. Oil lamps, torches, even brands pulled straight from their own hearths, all guttered, faltered, or burned with light alone, giving no warmth. The villagers crossed themselves, muttering prayers, their eyes fixed always on the serpent. It remained where it had first laid itself, draped along the base of the hearth, its body half in shadow, half in light. Its eyes followed no one. Its tongue flickered once, then vanished. That was all. Yet its stillness weighed on the air more heavily than any movement could. Soon no neighbor would step inside. They stood at the threshold, peering in with pale faces, whispering of curses, of omens, of evil carried on scaled backs. Mothers pulled their children away, warning them never to cross the doorway. Men avoided the road near the house, muttering that a place where fire gave no heat was no place for the living. The family sat alone in the growing cold. The hearth blazed bright with flames that mocked them, light without warmth, life without comfort. And above it all, the serpent waited, silent, as if it had all the time in the world. The family would not give up their home. Not yet. The father called for the priest, and the priest came with a crucifix in one hand and holy water in the other. He stood at the hearth, his voice trembling as he read the old prayers. Drops of water hissed on the glowing logs, but the serpent did not move. The flames leapt high, filling the chimney with sparks, yet the air remained as cold as a grave. The priest's voice faltered. His eyes flicked once toward the serpent, then he turned and left the house without another word. Next came the herbalist, carrying smoke of sage and bitter root. She circled the room 3 times, muttering charms, her bundle crackling with green fire. The smoke filled the house, stinging eyes and throats, but when it cleared, the serpent lay where it had always lain. Its body gleamed faintly, as though the smoke had never touched it. The family tried on their own. The mother scattered salt across the threshold, her hands shaking. The children hung sprigs of garlic above the hearth. The father struck his axe into the stone floor again and again, as if noise might drive the beast away. But the serpent did not stir. Its silence remained unbroken, its gaze fixed always toward the flames. Fear spread deeper. Neighbors stopped visiting. They crossed the street rather than passed the house. The well beside the door went dry. Birds that once nested in the eaves abandoned them. Even the dog refused to enter, howling at the threshold until he was driven away. Each night the fire blazed with light, and each night the cold grew sharper. The children huddled together, coughing, their breath white in the air. The mother wept quietly into her shawl. The father sat awake, his eyes bloodshot, staring at the serpent and whispering prayers he could no longer believe in. It was said later that the serpent never once struck, never once bared fangs, never once made a sound. It did not need to. Its presence alone was enough to hollow the house of life. And with every passing night, the cold dug deeper into their bones. Winter came early that year. Frost crept along the windows, tracing pale veins through the glass. The air outside was sharp, but within the house it was worse. The hearth blazed bright with flame, logs spitting sparks, yet the chill deepened as though the fire itself had betrayed them. The children wrapped themselves in every blanket, yet still they shook. Their lips turned blue, their teeth chattered, their coughing grew harsh and hollow. At night their small bodies pressed together for warmth, but the cold seeped between them, unstoppable, merciless. The mother's hands grew cracked and white. She tried to cook, but the pots hung cold above the flame, the broth refusing to bubble. Bread would not rise. Food remained raw, tasteless, heavy as stone. She wept over the empty bowls, whispering that even hunger was warmer than this. The father chopped wood until his arms bled with blisters, piling it high beside the hearth. He burned it all, log after log, but the blaze gave only mocking light. Sometimes he swung his axe at the serpent, roaring, yet his hands would fail him before the blow fell. The weight of his arm turned to weakness, and he lowered the blade again. The serpent never moved. It lay in the shadows of the hearth, coils stretched across the stones, its eyes black and still. In its presence the air froze, the walls creaked, and the breath of the living hung heavy in the dark. Neighbors no longer passed near the house. Children were told to keep their distance, to never look toward the windows. By night the villagers said they could see the fire burning through the shutters, bright and strong, but no smoke rose, no warmth drifted out. The house had become a lantern with no heat, a tomb lit from within. One by one, the family began to fade. Faces hollowed, skin turned pale, voices grew thin. The night stretched endless, each colder than the last. And all the while, the serpent watched out by spring, the house stood empty. The windows stared hollow over the road, their shutters hanging loose, their glass cracked with frost. The chimney, once steady with smoke, was black and silent. The neighbors whispered that the family had gone in the night, leaving without a word. Others said they had not gone at all, only slipped into the cold and never risen again. Yet the fire still burned. Those who passed by swore they saw it, a bright, steady blaze in the hearth, flickering against the dark walls. But no heat drifted from the doorway, no warmth touched the air. Travelers stopped at the threshold, drawn by the glow, only to step back as a chill like ice gripped their bones. And in the shadow of the hearth, some claimed they glimpsed it still, the serpent, coiled and silent, its black eyes fixed on the fire that gave no life. No one dared enter. Children were warned to keep away, to never cross the step. Men walking the road made the sign against evil and quickened their pace. At night, the villagers closed their shutters tightly, for those who looked too long swore they heard the hiss of scales against stone, faint as breath. The house stood, season after season, a shell around a fire that refused to warm. And so the story spread beyond the village, carried from mouth to mouth, until it became a warning told wherever fires burned. When the serpent crosses the threshold, the elders would say, their voices low, the fire still burns, but it will never give its heat again.